Captain Kidd, Part 4.
Thence he sailed for Long Island Sound, entered it from the eastward end, and made for New York, cautiously anchoring in Oyster Bay. Nowadays, seditiously avoided by malefactors of great wealth, it was his purpose to open negotiations with Belmont at long range. If you don't know Captain Kidd's story, you can definitely find out more. I'm just gonna focus on what's relevant to us. Belmont was governor of Massachusetts, who was his partner. However, he was going after Kidd, and Kidd wasn't sure whether to trust him or not. So he opened negotiation with the Lord Belmont at long range, holding his treasure as an inducement for a pardon, to be pardoned from being a pirate, being at least labeled a pirate. From Oyster Bay, he sent a letter to a lawyer in New York, James Emmod, who had before then defended pirates, and also a message to his wife. Emmat was asked to serve as a go-between, and he hastened to join Kidd on the sloop, explaining that Belmont was in Boston. Thereupon the Antonio, this is the sloop that Kidd was using. It's actually called Saint Antonio or Saint Anthony. It's the same sloop. So Antonio weighed anchor and sailed westward as far as Narragansett Bay. Now, this is why I was quoting this, because this definitely talks about him being in Narragansett Bay. Some of the events I'm presenting here are the same events, but are presented from different accounts, with different point of view, and with additional information. So I'm not repeating myself, I'm just adding information which is very useful for us treasure hunters. Kidd suspected Belmont's intentions and decided to leave his treasure in safe hands instead of carrying it to Boston with him. Now follows the documentary narrative of the authenticated buried treasure of Captain Kidd. At the eastern end of Long Island Sound is a beautiful wooden island of 3,000 acres, which has been owned by the Gardner family as a manor since the first of them, Lionel Gardner, obtained a royal grant almost 3 centuries ago. In June of 1699, John Gardner, third of the line of proprietors, sighted a strange sloop anchored in his island harbor, and rowed out to make the acquaintance of Captain William Kidd, who had crossed from Narragansett Bay in the San Antonio. What happened between them and how the treasure was buried and dug up is told in the official testimony of John Gardner, dated July 17, 1699. I quote, "Before we fall to digging up the treasure of Gardner's Island carried ashore in the chest of bags of gold, it is well to follow those other goods which were carried away in the sloops, about which so much has been said by the said John Gardner." Now all of the plunder transferred from Kidd's sloop to those other craft was cosigned to him, and some of it was put ashore at Stamford, Connecticut, in charge of a Major Selleck, who had a warehouse hard by the Sound. Clark was arrested by order of Belmont and gave a bond of £12,000 that he would deliver all up to the government. This he did, without doubt, but the legend has been busy with this enterprising whisking Clark. So in the Connecticut River off the upper end of Pine Meadow near Northfield, Massachusetts, is Clark's Island, which was granted by the town to William Clark in 1686 and confirmed to his heirs in 1723. It then contained 10 3/4 acres and was a secluded spot, well covered with trees. Later, what with cutting of the woods and the work of the freshets, a large part of the island was washed away. It was here, tradition has it, that some of the kid's treasure was hidden by whisking Clark. The local story is that Kidd and his men ascended the river, though how they got over the series of falls is not explained, and made a landing at Clark's Island. Here, having placed the chest in a hole, they sacrificed by lot one of the number and laid his body on top of the treasure in order that his ghost might forever defend it from the fortune seekers. On October 20th, 1699, Belmont wrote in a letter to England, I have prevailed with Governor Winthrop of Connecticut to seize and send Thomas Clark of New York prisoner hither. He has been on board Kidd's sloop at the east end of Long Island and carried off to the value of about 5,000 pounds in goods and treasure, that we know of, and perhaps a great deal more. And he carried that into Connecticut colony. And thinking himself safe from under our power, writ my lieutenant governor of New York a very saucy letter and bade us defiance. I have ordered him to be safely kept prisoner in the fort, because the goal of New York is weak and insufficient. And when orders came to me to send Kidd and his men to England, which I long for impatiently, I will also send Clark as an associate of Kidd. 3 days later, Lieutenant Governor of New York wrote Belmont as follows. Clark proffers 12,000 pounds good security, and will an oath deliver up all the goods he hath have been entrusted with from Kidd, provided he might go and fetch them himself, but says he will rather die or be undone than to bring his friends into a predicament. I told him if he would let me know where I might secure those goods or bullion, I would recommend his case to your lordship's favour. He answered 'twas impossible to recover anything until he went himself. After leaving the bulk of his treasure on Gardiner's Island, Kidd received another friendly message from Lord Belmont, and was by now persuaded that he could go to Boston without danger. With his wife on board his sloop, and she stood by him staunchly, he laid a course around Cape Cod and made port on the first day of July. Captain and Mrs. William Kidd found lodgings in the house of their friend Duncan Campbell, and he walked unmolested for a week, passing some of the time in the Blue Anchor Tavern. Being a very resolute fellow, wrote Hutchinson, when the officer arrested him in his lodgings, he attempted to draw his sword, but a young gentleman who accompanied the officer, laying hold of his arm, prevented him, and he submitted. In the letters of Lord Belmont to the lords of plantation and colonies are fully related the particulars of Kidd's downfall and of the finding of his treasure. On July 26, he stated, My lords, I gave your lordship a short account of my taking Captain Kidd in my letter of the 8th. I shall in this letter confine myself wholly to an account of my proceedings with him. On the 13th of last month, Mr. Emmat, a lawyer of New York, came to me late at night and told me he came from Captain Kidd, who was on the coast with a sloop, but would not tell me where. That Kidd had brought 60 pounds weight of gold, about 100 weight of silver, and 17 bales of East India goods. That kid had left behind him a great ship near the coast of Hispaniola that nobody but himself could find out, on board whereof there were in bale goods, salt peltry, and other things to the value of at least 30,000 pounds. So 50 pounds weight or upwards in quantity, the narrator left in the custody of Mr. Gardner of Gardiner's Island. The narrator here they're referring is to Captain Kidd. Near the eastern end of Long Island, fearing to bring it about by sea. So 50 pounds was left at Mr. Gardner's care. It is made up in a bag, put into a little box, locked and nailed, corded about and sealed. The narrator, Captain Kidd, saith he took no receipt for it of Mr. Gardner.
If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe, like it, and share it.